Hey guys, it's Sensuki here and welcome to Sensuki's Suggestions. I think this is up to number 18, and this suggestion will not actually be a single suggestion, but it will be my version 2.78 review. Now, we got a patch a few weeks ago that updated Pills of Eternity from 257BB to 278BB, and there was a bunch of improvements that came with this, but first I'll just get into some stuff before I go into my version review. The first thing is I've got some background music on just to make sure that people don't get bored while listening to this, because a couple of people said that they got sick of listening to the game music the whole time, so I've turned the game music off and I've got some background music on. Hopefully it won't be too loud, and hopefully it will be fitting for a fitting combination for my voice. The second thing is that I'll probably do something at the end, because this is going to be a very long video. It'll probably be about an hour long. I'll probably do something at the end, like an impersonation of an Australian TV ad or something like that. And then the third thing I wanted to say before I start is thanks for all the support on the Obsidian forums, for everybody who's been commenting on my posts and keeping my morale up while I've been going pretty hard at the beta testing. So that's been great. And also thanks to Monte Carlo for the appreciation thread that he made. Okay, so let's get into it. Now, the first thing is that there's a bunch of improvements that came with version 2.78. So the main thing that Pills of Eternity version 2.78 brought is that combat is actually now playable. It's actually possible to test combat kind of properly, because selection works most of the time, targeting works most of the time, and all that kind of stuff. And there's still a fair bit of there's a fair amount of dogpiling, but you can actually play combat and actually get a feel for how the game is going to play. And obviously it still needs a lot more improvement, but the improvement that Obsidian's made to combat from the first version to the second version that we've had in the back about it has been great. So a lot of good testing has come out of that. The second thing is that save load and general persistence through area transitions is a lot better. I mean, there's a few new bugs, such as character items appearing in the middle of rooms and also characters surfing on their gear. But I think that will probably be fixed in the next patch. Excuse me, I've still got a cough for some reason. Areas don't look as washed out as they used to. They said it was a bug with the ambient maps, and they've managed to fix it. But the colours of things in general still isn't quite right, but it is a big improvement that you can actually see the characters do stand out from the background a lot more, because the background has got a much deeper shade of colour, which is really nice. There's been some UI improvements. I noticed that Obsidian has included pretty much everything from my first four suggestion threads. Selection circle thickness has been thinned to around about the same size as the Infinity Engine games, but the circle is more aliased, so there's not as much, it's not a single pixel circle around the character, it's a bit thicker. Also, they've changed the selection circle mousing over to make the circle blink in the IE style rather than to change size in and out, which is kind of distracting, which is really good. And also I noticed that Dimitri Berman got in pretty much all of my female armor suggestions into the first round on the human models. He didn't manage to get through all of them, but the female proportions, or female body proportions of all humans have been improved from the first version, so that's great. He also added in a new bunch of hair models, and Kaz added in some new portraits as well, and I really like Kaz's new portraits that he added in. I'd recommend, if Kaz watches this video, to make some Valian portraits, because there's currently no Valian portraits, and that's kind of annoying. So yeah, if we can do that, that'd be great. And also one of the new things, and this is some of the stuff that one of the new bugs that's come in, is that now the portraits in the main HUD are actually it's either the portraits are too small by a couple of pixels, or the main HUD is actually too wide. There's actually a clear gap around the portrait and around the health bar, so you can actually see straight through the portrait UI into the level. So like when the portrait goes over like a tree or something, you can see the leaves in like between 3 pixels of the portrait and the sidebar. Now, one of the things that I read that will probably be coming later on is that per character stealth, there's apparently a couple of issues with getting that in. Josh Sawyer had a chat to Tim Kane about it, and I think they might be able to get per character invisibility in, but maybe not per character stealth, and if they do, it will be much later on. So for anyone anticipating that, hold your breath for a while. Just a tip for everybody, the best weapons to use in the beta at the moment are, well, melee weapons anyway, are the S-Stock, because it has -5 DT, and that -5 DT is overpowered, and the S-Stock is currently the best melee weapon in the game. Morningstar I'd rate as my second favourite weapon, because it's crushing damage, and it does a lot of damage, and it has a good interrupt as well. And then the Mace and the Stiletto, which are the same as the S-Stock, they both have -5 to DT as their special property, which is really strong, and they're probably the only one-handed weapons worth using at the moment. Also, bows and implements are terrible, so if you've got an arbalist or a gun, give it to your ranged characters. There's no point at all using anything else. And the pike is okay against Aedra beetles. I think you'll end up facing them if you play on hard, but anyway, that's just a tip that I wanted to let people know about. Okay, so now I'm one of the crazy people that reads pretty much every Pillars of Eternity thread on the internet, so I happen to know that there's a few things coming in the next patch, so I just wanted to let the backers know that watch this video to look out for a few things that are coming, and just in case anyone was wondering. The first thing is that they have another AI their old tools programmer, I can't remember his name, it's like a Polish name or something. Dave starts with an S and there's a bunch of Y's. I can't remember how to pronounce it because I'm not looking at his name right now. He's working on the AI for enemies at the moment, and there should be some improvements in that. And I actually decompiled the source code of the game and had a look at what they had in for the AI, and there's not much in there, I can tell you. So yeah, hope there'll be a lot new, probably AI clauses added in if not this version, then the next one. So, but I would assume that there would be some AI improvements coming in the next patch, because that's one of the things that kind of makes combat a bit crappy, is because whichever character opens combat, they're the one that gets attacked by all the units straight away. And there's the new pathfinding system. I think they did improve it. Like now, there's no overlapping of selection circles or stuff like that, but it's actually worse than before, because I don't know what they're doing. It's like they're not making a check in the pathfinding code for the shortest path available, taking into account the amount of nav mesh that's free, because characters, like, they're running into each other and then they just keep running into each other for like 20 meters or longer, and then they eventually come out of that cycle and go into the spots where they were told. And also enemies, when you pause the game, or when like enemies are blocked, there's like, I don't know how far they actually check in the nav mesh for a route to get to their target. When their immediate path is blocked, they just teleport straight to where your character is. Spiders, I know that stone beetles have an inbuilt teleport, which has the ridiculous name of teleport through earth. Please change that to burrow. That's just pretentious. But like wood beetles and spiders and all sorts of enemies have been teleporting around all over the place due to the new pathfinding code, so hopefully that gets improved. The next thing I'm not sure about is the fog of war. Now, the fog of war at the moment is ridiculous. Like you can see, so far it's just not funny, and they really need to change it back to line of sight. And they make it. I made a suggestion thread about the fog of war to. Obviously, like whoever codes this stuff knows a lot more about it than me, but like if they could get it so that it wouldn't reveal over the top of walls and stuff, but it actually would reveal until the edge of the nav mesh, like in between the area where there's no nav mesh, it reveals all the black, and then it doesn't reveal the actual nav mesh or something. Because then you'd actually, one of the problems in Baldur's Gate and the Infinity Engine games was like, you go up to the edge of pathable terrain and then you couldn't reveal all the black over on a cliff or something, and it was just, I don't know, it was frustrating. So hopefully they do something to fix that. And the next thing that we recently heard about is that there'll be a change to attributes coming soon. And it's kind of funny. Myself and another board member, Matt516, we spent 2 weeks figuring out the problems with perception and resolve. I already had a solution that I thought of instantly as soon as Josh Sawyer posted the interrupt mechanics online, but I wanted to prove it, so I asked Matt516 for some help, and he happens to do mechanical engineering at uni, so we worked for 2 weeks and we came up with a paper on how to fix the attributes, which was released a couple of days ago and got about 12,000 views in one day, which is fantastic. Everyone seemed to like the work that we did. And it was kind of funny because apparently we reached very similar conclusions to what the developers had. They also came to the conclusion that dexterity should have a 2% IAS increase per point, and that accuracy should be moved to perception because that makes more sense. But they wanted to remove interrupt from the attribute system, and they were a bit apprehensive about putting deflection into the mix. Whereas we thought that we didn't know if the backers or the developers wanted to remove the interrupt system. So our solution was that interrupt was combined with the combat stat that it was dependent on accuracy, and then you can't make a trap build with them being together, because you can have high interrupt and high accuracy at the same time, rather than high interrupt but low accuracy, which would be really bad. And our other solution was to add deflection in with concentration. I still think that should be what the attribute system ends up being, because then you have three mirrored sets of attributes: 2 offensive, 2 defensive, and 2 universal. I think Josh Sawyer wants to nerf intellect and make it so that deflection goes with AoE and concentration goes with duration. I do like concentration with duration, but I don't like deflection with AoE, and I really think that the 2-2-2 split needs to be kept, because that's really easy to understand, and any new player that comes in will easily be able to see, oh yeah, I get it, there's 2 different types of attributes, 3 different types of attributes, 2 in each. Okay, fair enough. And I think one of the reasons that people think it's like must-have choice to have all of their cast of characters with intellect is because that the durations are so overpowered at the moment. Like, all of the ability durations and stuff are just ridiculously long. If you put any amount of points into intellect, you just get bullshit durations. So that's one of the things I was going to be bringing out later on, is that durations as a whole need a nerf, so it's not actually as strong. So then you actually have a bit of a choice. Do I want to do more straight out damage, or do I want to have my durations longer, or something like that? One of the other things that's coming in is they've changed the combat log to have the major clothing color of all the units. So like, if you're PC attacks, their name will show up in the combat log with the major clothing color, and this is how Baldur's Gate did it. And I've been campaigning for this for over a year, like literally in every thread or interview that I've done about Pillars of Eternity, I've always brought this up, and I have never received a reply on it, so I'm really glad that they're adding it in. But they also do need to add it into the dialogue system as well, so that when a character talks, their major clothing color is shown in the dialogue instead of it just being the default color. The other thing that they're bringing in, which will be really good, is they're bringing in targeting reticules. So currently, in the first patch, when you had a character that was attacking someone, there was no UI indication of that at all. Now, in the current patch, as per my suggestion, they actually do have targeting at the moment, but it's only the blinking. They only have the blinking, which happens when you mouse over a unit, and they are going to be adding in a targeting reticule. But, and this is very important, I'm going to fight to the death to make it like the Infinity Engine game style, where it has the 4 triangles, and you have they're not all going in at the same time. It's like 2 for the other. If they don't use that style of targeting reticule, I'm going to go crazy, even though it seems like a minor thing. But I'm very supportive of those style of targeting reticules, because there's not really many other games that use them. Like in RTS, like the Infinity Engine games have like some of the best combat feedback I've ever seen for real-time games. And one of the other things I wanted to address is that many of the backers at the moment are finding the game too fast. Now, we actually talked about this in the paper, and we spoke about the fact that while the combat does feel stressful and fast, it's not because of the speed of unit actions. Recovery times for units are actually quite long. They're longer than what you would expect to find in something like Icewind Dale 2, which is actually has slower combat than the second edition AD&D games. And the reason why I think many of the backers are finding combat so stressful, well, the first reason might be you might not be used to playing games where you're required to have fairly high actions per minute, but pause does alleviate that. And the other things that I think is making the game feel too fast and be too stressful for the majority of backers is because unit per hit damage is very high due to the fact that the DT system requires a lot higher numbers than what the D&D based games required. So damages, instead of being like, a weapon doing 1 to 8 damage, it does like 18 to 28 damage, because the DT integers system requires that the numbers are that high, so you're actually doing damage. So, but the thing is though, you wouldn't, like, I think the health amounts, the health amounts in Pillars of Eternity are about double to what you would have at about the same level in D&D. So if like a 5th level fighter with max constitution, I think they would have about 70, I think it's 70 health, it might be more than that. It'd be like 70 to, I think it might even be 90 health, somewhere around there. But in Pillars of Eternity they have like 140, somewhere, something like that. But the amount of damage that's being done per hit is like 4 times as much than what it is in the Infinity Engine games. So like it represents a much higher total percentage of your actual health per hit. So it's requiring players to like pause at every single character action to make sure that they don't miss any time in combat. Whereas that wasn't actually really required in the Infinity Engine games, except in some of the really big fights. One of the other reasons which the developers themselves have pointed out is that the backer beta characters, especially your PC, are underpowered at this stage of the game. They don't have any magical gear, and while they do have, well, the backer beta characters have fine weapons, your character only starts with like weapons that they would start at the start of the game. So I haven't actually been playing that through that much of the questing and stuff, or actually getting much gold to get weapons. I've mainly been focusing on testing, but a lot of the other backers that have been doing that have been saying that the game is much easier once you start getting some magical items. I think it was Karkaroff that said once I don't know whether he cheated to get the gold to buy Pale Justice, but he said one of his characters could solo a lot of the monsters in an area just with that item alone. The third thing that I wanted to mention is that the movement speed of all units in combat is too fast. It is way faster than the Infinity Engine games, and this creates the feeling like at the start of combat where everyone just, boom, they just run into each other in about 1 second. When they're on opposite sides of the screen, that didn't happen in the Infinity Engine game. So the movement speed in combat is fast, but the movement speed in exploration is always too fast. So they really need to slow. They have actually slowed it down a little bit, but not enough. They need to slow it down further. And this is one of the things that I didn't think they saw coming, because they added in the run animation because Planescape Torment had run, but they probably just didn't think about it. It probably just been something where like, oh yeah, we'll just add in run. Run's cool, you know, it speeds your speed up, but they didn't actually think about what ramifications that would have on the actual gameplay. So I think that was something they missed in hindsight. The fourth thing is there's an obvious lack of visual cues, audio cues, and UI feedback in combat. I don't know if there's hit reactions. I know that there's interrupt hit reactions, but there's like, I can't remember if there's blood splatter or not when you hit something. If there is, it's not enough. There needs to be more apparent. There's not enough. There's no combat barks. Like none of the voice sets have any, like when you get hit they may go ugh or something like that. They don't have any of those kind of. There's no voice sets in there for that. The animation, there's not enough animations to differentiate actions, and like there's not enough UI feedback, like targeting isn't in, and all sorts of stuff like that as well. So they really that lack of this stuff is making people feel confused, I think. The fourth thing I wanted to mention is that players are unfamiliar with the game system. Because you're being thrown into the beta at level 5, you don't, like, even I don't know what all the spells do yet, because I've been doing videos where I've been fighting the beetles on hard with different classes, just to sort of show people how they play and allow the developers to watch my videos and see how I'm playing. And people have been pointing out, oh, you should use this spell, it's actually better. And like, I haven't been sitting there reading the spells or anything like that, so there's a lot of stuff that even I don't know, and I've been putting in a lot of hours into the beta. So I think you'll find that the more you play, the more you'll improve. Well, it depends on the person, really. Like I've noticed that from the very first Sensuki versus the Beatles video I've made, I've improved massively in combat. And the last point I wanted to mention is that because all classes have more active and mobile abilities, it requires a much higher level of micromanagement than the Infinity Engine games did. And this is something that I think a lot of the backers won't be used to. If you don't play games like Dota or RTS games, this will be very stressful for you, because even Dota and RTS games can be stressful. Like you have to have a certain knack for it to be able to play it all the time. Okay, so now I'm going to move into my review of this patch, and that's my review of this patch anyway. And now I'm going to focus on the things that I think need improvement. And I've got a Word document open here. I'm just going to read through them all. It might take a while because there's a lot of stuff that I wanted to say, and I've got them split into sections. So I'm going to read out the sections first, and then I'm going to go through the individual sections. So if you feel like skipping forward or whatever, go ahead. The first section I've got is areas, and there's only 2 things that I've got to point out there. The second section is character creation. The third one is the main HUD. The fourth one is inventory. The fifth one is general, which has a whole bunch of stuff in it. The sixth section is combat, and the last one is classes. And I'm not sure how long it will take me to go through all these. It might take a while. Okay, so the first thing I've got under areas is that I get massive differentiating performance depending on what area I'm in. I have a pretty good computer, but it is about 5 years old now. I've got an i7 870, and I've got an AMD HD 7970 3GB card, and I've got 16GB of RAM. So I get about 90 to 100 frames a second in the Deerford. When I go to the Deerford Crossing, it stays about the same. And when I go inside some of the interiors in the Deerford, I get about 150. But then when I go into some of the dungeon levels, I only get about 30 frames a second, and that's because a lot of the dungeon levels have like really large 2D or 3D animations. And I think that the animations in the levels is what's making them really massive slowdowns. And like, they really need to either optimize the animations or optimize the governing code that that controls the animations in the levels to make the levels run a bit faster. Because I really don't feel like going into those dungeons and playing the game at 30 frames a second. It just feels disgusting, especially when you open a UI window as well. That drops down the frames to about 10. Ugh, I cannot stand it. I cannot wait for a performance pass. Like when I was playing Wasteland 2, the Wasteland 2 beta, I was getting between about 30 to 40 frames, which was not that great. But I think it was the second last patch, they did a massive performance tweak, and I started getting about a 90 to 100 frames a second, and that's in a full 3D game. So hopefully when this game gets tweaked, I'll be getting like 150, 200 frames a second. It will be fantastic. Then I'll actually be getting more frames than my monitor refresh rate. The second thing I wanted to point out is that, I think I've mentioned this before, is that the beetles in the Deerford Crossing, the placement of the encounters needs a bit of work. Because the beetles have a patrol thing, it's very easy to pull multiple mobs, so you don't actually have much room to move around in combat. And it's one of the I think it's bad because the first time any player goes into the Deerford Crossing, they're going to aggro multiple groups at once, and they're going to die. So if they could move so like, you know how you spawn in the area at the left side, and because the fog of war is so large, you can clearly see both groups of the beetles near each other. What they need to do is move the top group up further, and they need to maybe move the group that you can see back a bit. They need to space them out better so that you can't, like on the first time you play the game, run into both of them at the same time unless something goes wrong. So I think they need to work on that as well. So I'm going to move on to character creation now. Now the first thing, this is obvious, and I know it's being addressed, is that you can't exit out of character creation. You have to crash the game. And one of the other things I've noticed with that is that when you say I've got the game difficulty, I play on hard. So when I set the game difficulty to hard and quit out of the game and then come back in, it remembers the setting. But when I create a hard game, go into the character creation and then Control Delete and crash the game, it resets the difficulty to easy. So when they patch that in, they need to make sure that the difficulty persists when you exit out of character creation. I don't think that should be manageable. The next one is the order of elements in the character creation needs a reshuffle. Now there's been multiple suggestions on the forum about this. I think culture should probably go before attribute selection, maybe. And portraits should probably go before appearance. And there's a few other things that they could shuffle around, but I don't quite think it's in the right order. The next thing is the buttons need optimization. When I press a button in any of the UI menus in Pillars of Eternity, my frame rate goes down to about 5 frames a second. It's like a massive micro stutter. It completely stops my computer. So someone commented on one of my YouTube videos and said that that wasn't happening to them and it wasn't happening to someone else whose videos they've watched. So it must be something to do with either running the game off a mechanical hard drive or maybe something graphically related. I'm not sure, because I'm running it off just a mechanical hard drive and not running it off an SSD. The fourth thing I wanted to mention is that racial and cultural bonuses combined with the point buy system kind of trivialize the racial and cultural bonuses that you get. It doesn't really, because they're worth the same amount of points as a point in the attribute system. It just doesn't seem right, because even in second edition and in third and fourth edition, the bonuses that you get from race is worth more than the points that you spend in point buy. So that makes it a big deal. But currently they're not really that much of a big deal, because the minimum stats for races is like really low. It's like 2 and 3, and the maximums are like 19 or 20. So it doesn't really matter what race you are. That may not be a bad thing though. Yeah, so like if that's something what they want to address, that would be good. The other thing is that the cultural attribute bonuses need to be changed around, because like I think 3 of them give resolve, 2 of them give perception, and 1 gives might or something like that, and maybe 1 gives dexterity. None of them give constitution, and I don't think any of them give intelligence either. So maybe like the white when should be changed to constitution. They need to be like you need to be able to get like at least one attribute per. It needs to be covered in all the cultures. They need to have at least one culture that has that attribute. I think there's 7 cultures, I can't remember. It's either 7 or 8. So there's enough there. The next thing I wanted to mention is that I would love to be able to pick a talent at level 1. That would be fantastic. And I know that the reason that you don't have talent selection at level 1 is because they don't want players to feel overwhelmed during the character creation, but I think it would be great, because character creation really does need a little bit of extra customization. It'd also be nice if you could pick talents more often at level up, because advancement feels pretty shit compared to even just Icewind Dale 2. The next thing is it would be nice to be able to customize your starting gear. Now I know this might not be much of a big deal, because like when you start in the game, there's a store right at the start, but I really think it'd be nice to just like have a choice of a couple of sets of armor and a few different types of weapons, because like if the shop doesn't have all the weapons covered at the start of the game, then or you don't have enough gold or whatever, you might not be able to use the gear that you want. And it's just a nice thing for role players as well. People like Indira Lightfoot, they would really love to be able to do that. The next thing is that the attribute screen doesn't explain how the defenses work. So like when you're assigning your points, a new player is not going to know whether like that their attributes actually give bonuses to the 3 minor defenses. So that is not explained at all. And the other thing that would be nice is that when you're picking attributes, if it showed your character's accuracy and your character's defenses and all that kind of stuff, so that when you actually raise the attributes, you can see what it gives. Like it's actually the points in accuracy going up when you raise perception, the points in your defense scores are going up when you're raising, constitution and might and all that kind of stuff. I think that would be good, because then it would give new players more of an understanding of what they're actually getting out of their attributes, like in the character creation phase. The next thing, most of this stuff that I've got here is related to character art, and I've been sending Dimitri Berman some messages with my feedback, and also he has asked for feedback, guys, and I haven't really been seeing too much feedback on the character art. So if you've got the time, just go through all the races, go through all the different cultures, so you can look at the armor models and just see if you can find anything that doesn't look right. Because like I think Dimitri is the only character artist left on the project, and he is really after that kind of feedback. The first thing that I wanted to address, which I've already addressed in the private message to Dimitri, is that hair doesn't interact with armor properly. All of the buffy hair and all that kind of stuff clips through the collars of armor, and it just looks really weird, so they need to find a way to make that work. The second thing is that female armor proportions don't look right on all of the races, so that needs to be they need to improve the uniformity of how armor looks on various races, because like a lot of the armor sets, when you see like a female in chainmail, they have like they have like the right proportions, like the breasts are at the right place in the chest and all that kind of stuff. It looks really natural. But when like some of the races you go straight to a breastplate, it looks like they've had breast cancer and they've been cut off, and just the proportions like around under the arms and stuff like that don't quite look right either. I've already sent Dimitri like a big PM with all screen caps and suggestions and all that kind of stuff, but I think they need to work on that as well. Just making sure that it all looks uniform and it all looks correct. Most of the male armor actually looks pretty good. The next thing is that the default idle character stance has some issues where weapons in the offhand clip through the character's body. So like when characters are holding stilettos and stuff at their hip in their left hand, the stiletto clips through the bottom of their armor or their legs, and the bowstrings actually do the same thing. So that needs to be fixed as well. The chains in the Brigandine armor are too wide. They need to be changed to the chain texture from the actual chainmail. And a lot of the face models need a bit of work. They look unfinished compared to some of the other ones. There's always a couple of, like, apart from the elf ones, which all look pretty bad in my opinion, the racers will have a couple of faces that have had a lot of work done on it, and then a couple that haven't. You can clearly see that they're not quite finished yet. One of the things that I figured out just before is, like, you know how when you go into the character creation screen, here I'll go into it here, just wait a second. Okay, that took a really long time to load, and the music's probably jumped. So you see how here we've got the description boxes, and they're really small, and there really needs to be a lot more room to be able to show... Oh, my cursor's blinking. I don't know if you can see that in the game, but my cursor's blinking. The description boxes need to be a lot bigger because there's so much text to be shown. What I think they could do is, you know, you see how they're floating in the screen here? See how it's a floating thing? They could make it part of the side panel. Instead of having this these trees here, move the description box all the way to the corner of the screen, and then you can have it go up fairly high. You can have it go up to about there and come all the way down. So then you've got a lot more room on either side, and you still keep the same amount of space for the character model to breathe in the middle. So I think that's what they should do. I'll probably make a separate thread on that with that idea. That was just something that I thought of today. The next one, going all the way to cultures. So here I'll just make a quick character. Whatever. Oh, this isn't part of character creation. Okay, so the ruffian weapon group doesn't have a bow or a crossbow in the group, whereas all the other ones do. And there's no weapon group that governs unarmed combat, so you can't get weapon focus unarmored, weapon focus with unarmored like weapons. So monks can't get weapon focus for their fists, and you can't get weapon specialization for it either. And the other thing is that if I go back to appearance, male and female portraits need to be separated into two groups. So, like, if you create a male, it should only show male portraits. So that would be good as well. That's probably obvious, and that's probably something they'll do. Okay, so I'll make a game. So now I'm going to focus on the main HUD. Okay, the first thing is that whatever program they're using to shrink these portraits from the original size, the compression in them is absolutely horrible. I'm viewing it in the 720p version, and they have actually improved the portraits being blurry, but the portraits are still really bad. I don't know what they're using. Like, I reckon I could make better quality small portraits using Irfan View, because you can actually control the amount of quality that you get when you resize something, because usually you lose some quality when you resize it. So if they could have a look at that, that would be good, because I think you're actually losing some detail when you're squishing it down. And there are programs that can actually keep the same amount of detail. The second thing is that the level up sound, as you just heard then, is really freaking loud. They need to turn that down. I don't know if that's a temporary sound or whatever, but that is just too loud. Of course, it means you're never going to miss leveling up, but eventually you're going to look at the portrait and see the plus there, so they really need to change that sound and turn it down. One of the other things is that one of the things they mentioned in the update 84 in the Kickstarter is that the health display is a bit unintuitive. Now, of course, we the beta backers, we know how the health system works. But what I think they could do is they could change it from... They could change the way that health takes damage. So my suggestion, I've already made a thread about this, is that all damage should only deal damage to stamina. except maybe I think the monk wounds works a bit differently there, but pardon me. All damage should only deal stamina damage, and all healing should come from your health. So that and that makes a clear distinction between the two groups. And then they could display the health as a number on the bottom of the portrait or something like that, instead of just a green bar. But that's just a suggestion. I don't really care if that's implemented or not, because I understand how the health system works. The second thing is that I think the greying out of portraits when they're not selected is too much. Like, it's very obvious when you've got a character selected, because you can see the highlighting of their frame, but the portraits also greyed out. I think they're greyed out a little bit too much, so I think they should fix that. And can you see there, like how there's a gap in the UI? See how you can see that? That's what I was talking about before. I think the position of the combat log really sucks on the far right, because like people read in a Z pattern like that. So like when you're focusing on the combat, you'll generally have your screen positioned here, your characters will be there, enemies will be there. You're focusing on this side of the screen here, like, but it's annoying. To actually pay attention to the combat log, you have to stop paying attention to the actual action in the combat. So most of the time, you'll only be looking at the log when you're paused. So that's why I reckon that they should move the elements around so that the portraits are either in the middle on the right and the combat log's on the left, so that when you're actually looking at your characters, you can see the combat log under it and see what's going on. I don't think that the lead designer agrees with me on that, so that may not actually happen. That's just something I wanted to point out. Also, the text for the combat log is too freaking big. It needs to be smaller. Now, one of the other things I wanted to point out is that when you have a character selected, here I have a priest, I'm going to cast Interdiction. When I pause the game, what happens? My targeting disappears. This doesn't happen in the Infinity Engine games. Like, when you have the game pause, it shouldn't cancel your action. So they need to fix that as well. That's not really a main HUD thing though, that's general. I should have had that in the wrong section. The dialogue names I already spoke about. They will become, like say I've got my character selected here. His name will now appear in his major clothing colour, which I think is blue. They need to also make that happen in the dialogue box as well in here, and as well in the main dialogue HUD. The action bar here might need a talk button, because apparently you can interact with companions, just like you know how in like Knights of the Old Republic 2 you can talk to your companions. I suppose that's something on the Ebon Hawk, isn't it? No, it's Planescape Torment where you can do it. You can click on the talk button and then initiate dialogue with one of your companions. But I don't think there's any way to do that. It's with characters in your party at the moment. So maybe you can only talk to them at the Stronghold, because the Stronghold would technically be like the Ebon Hawk. I'm not sure.
Very well.
So maybe like when you go to the Stronghold, all of your party members become like that. They're not in your party anymore. I'm not sure if that's how it works, but that's just something to think about anyway. They could put it here in the center bit, but that would throw off the symmetry. But I also think they need a party AI button, because you need to be able to control whether you want auto attacks on or not, because currently I don't think there's enough clauses for auto attacks in the game. So like when I'm casting an ability, I think in Baldur's Gate there's like a bunch of auto attack clauses for party members when you've got the party AI turned on over here. So like when you select two characters as at once and they attack a monster, once they've finished attacking that monster, they'll attack a monster of the same type. Or if they kill a character, they'll keep attacking. The next thing is formations need to be closer together.
Very well. In
the Infinity Engine games, formations weren't this far apart. They were about here. So I think they need to change it to that, because it makes it much easier for going over geometry. So there's a bridge on the other side of the level.
Very well.
Like if there's any, I don't know if they've made a point to make no corridors smaller than this, but I really think they need to make the formations closer together by default. I'm not going to open up the formations menu because it will just lag the game, and I'll have to quit out and come back in, and that will make me have to stop the video. The next thing is the combat log fills up with bullshit. Like, you don't need to know constant recovery heals 1 hit point every single time it does that. What you should be able to do is be able to filter it out. Probably something like in the options menu. So if I like go into here and go to game or something, maybe it has like combat log filtering or some shit like that, where we can turn all that stuff off. And the last thing is that the UI buttons have 2 sounds that is really annoying. So like when I click this button here, it plays 2 sounds at once instead of 1 like it used to, and that extra sound is just completely unnecessary. Please get rid of it. It was fine how it was. Okay, so moving on to the inventory screen. Oops, I'm not in the game. There we go. Okay, inventory. Dragging items in the inventory is really laggy. You see the delay when I pick up an item. It's about 600 milliseconds delay. See? Delay. That's really bad. That needs to be optimized. You don't get enough item slots. I think maybe if you had the full 16 slots per character, it would be a bit better, but I really do not like the whole inventory UI as it is. I don't like it. One annoying thing is you can't drop items when you pick something up. I'm in the inventory screen here. How do I drop an item? How do I do it? Oh, it's full screen. I'm in 720p. I can't drop it. I can't drop an item. How do I drop an item? Like, see what I mean? Bullshit. You can't drop an item. So they need to be able to make... They probably need to make it so that there's some slots here somewhere where that actually represent what's on the ground, so you can actually drop your fucking gear. The next thing is pop-up UI elements are getting a... This is what I should have had this spoken about this earlier, but pop-up elements like the stash and the quest items, they're being improved, so they're going to be much larger boxes or something like that. I really think they should change quest items to how they are in The Witcher 1. Get rid of that stash box and put it over here or something. Make this whole area here maybe like 6 slots or something. So like 2 rows of slots, and have the quest items automatically lock into those slots. So that you can see them on the inventory and you can inspect them from the inventory without having to open up an extra element in the inventory to interact with them. Reducing the amount of mouse clicks is a good thing. The next thing is the amount of button clicks that it takes to change gear around on characters is exactly the same as the Infinity Engine games. Now, I'm pretty sure that the people that designed the inventory for this game didn't like how the inventory in the Infinity Engine games worked, and they wanted to simplify it. Well, that hasn't happened. Let's see how many actions it takes to equip a character with this sword. Okay, 1. Now I have to move the item to the character. Now there's 2 things I can do. I can either put the item in the slot or click on their portrait. So that drops it, so that's 2 clicks. 3, 4, 5. I think it's 5 clicks. It depends how you do it. That's the most optimal way to do it. Yeah, so it's 4 if you actually click on the portrait and it chucks it in a slot. But if you actually want to select which slot it in, it's 5. So I think the equipping a character in the Infinity Engine games takes the same amount of clicks. So that just seems a bit convoluted to me. That's why I think that it should just be 1 inventory without it being stupid single boxes. The next thing here is that I don't think I'll be able to show this off. Have I got a morning star? See that? How the morning star overlaps the 2D UI? That bar there? That needs to be fixed, so that actually needs to go behind that there. See how it's overlapping it? Because like when you have a pike, it goes all the way, it comes all the way out of the screen, and it actually covers the side of the inventory UI. You should be able to change colours when you're in the inventory. You can't do it at the moment. The Infinity Engine games allowed you to change colours on the fly. You should be able to do it in this game. You should be able to... Oh yeah, the text and buttons for this section here needs to be improved. See how the text is overlapping the love heart there? They need to change that to a different icon maybe. I think these are temporary icons. And there needs to be a mouse over for accuracy and the defense, the defenses, so it actually shows how much defense you have versus each type of DT, and your melee and ranged accuracy for your 2 different weapons. Now the weapon sets should show the primary. There should be something here. I don't know how they would do it, but there needs to be a way to see the amount of damage you're doing and the speed of the weapon. You can probably have it on the tooltip, so that when you mouse over it, it shows the real damage that you're doing and the real speed in seconds and milliseconds, so that your speed of the weapon, I know this weapon here, unarmored, takes 3 seconds total to attack, 30 frames for the hit, 30 frames for recovery, and 30 frames for being two-handed. That's slowed down by 45% wearing armor. How am I supposed to work that out straight away? So it needs to show the exact time that it takes in seconds and milliseconds for me to make an attack with that weapon, so I actually know how much per hit damage I'm doing and how long it takes. So yeah, like I just really don't like the inventory as it is. I really think that later on down the track in the beta, they really need to have a rethink about how to make the inventory easy to use, because currently I'd say it's worse than Infinity Engine games. And I'm not blaming Kaz, because Kaz has done great work at making it look like it should. It fits into the game. It's got nice, it looks like a nice wooden feel. Doesn't have quite as an ornate look as Icewind Dale 2 does, but it looks pretty good. And the last thing is, we shouldn't. One of the things that the lead designer mentioned is that if say all of your characters' items are full, you're expected to inspect the item on the ground to decide whether you want to pick it up or not, or whether you wanted to put it into your stash. That's bullshit. That's one of the reasons why I don't like the limited inventory space, because like you don't do that in real life. Like you find something on the ground, you pick it up, and then you put it away, and then if you want to see whether it's a friggin' magical sword +2 or whatever, you have a look at it later when you're not, doing stuff. So that's just one gripe I have. I don't think you should be expected to inspect stuff on the ground. So now I'm going to move into the general section. Now the first thing that annoys me about this patch, and this is something that was working in version 2.5.7 but it's not working now, is there's no right click cancel. So like I'm not going to do this because actually, so like if I want to attack this guy, I can't cancel it, and now I'm getting attacked. I was pressing X, and the cancel didn't work, and right mouse didn't work either. So now I'm going to have to quit the game and come back in. The second thing is that character cloth tints still look really washed out compared to the environment. Before, the environment also looked washed out, but now the character cloth tints look noticeably washed out. So I'll just quickly go through this again. I really should have got a bottle of water for this, because my throat is starting to get sore. So you see how that red colour there, it doesn't look like, it's just not strong enough. It looks really washed out in the world. Maybe that's realistic, I don't know, but yeah, I just think that the character colours, they don't pop enough. Like I think it was Justinian on the forums who mentioned this, that the colours of the characters just don't pop enough in the world. Like I don't know whether it's because of the alpha channel of the colours or whatever, but yeah, they just don't stand out enough. I'm not asking for like Blizzard level popping out of colours. That's too far, but they don't pop out enough as much as the Infinity Engine games colours do. Marquee select is missing 1 pixel in the corner. See that up in the, if you do a marquee select, and you can see in the very top left corner that the square does not have a pixel in the very left corner. Come on, Kaz or Brian, whoever did that. That's shocking. You can't have it's not a perfect square. You need to fix it. That's a bug, I'm telling you. So that needs to be fixed. The next thing is that there needs to be 2 different types of tooltip feedback. Now what I like to be able to do is I like a delay on the UI buttons, so that when I'm moving my mouse around they don't come up instantly, but I like a shorter delay on the character ones. I would like to be able to, sorry, it's the opposite. When I'm mousing over characters in the area, I would like to have a 1.5 second delay, which was I think it was slightly shorter than the default time for the Infinity Engine games. When I'm mousing over an ability, I would like to have a 1 second delay, but currently they're all linked. I'd like to be able to, so it's separated so that combat tooltips have their own speed and that UI tooltips have their own speed as well, so you can actually change them to how you want. That would be really nice. I think movement is a little bit unresponsive, but that might just be my mouse. So if I like quickly move here left and right, see how I'm clicking, you can hear the button clicks on the microphone, right? But why is it not working? Is it because, maybe it's because of marquee select, but see, I'm pressing the button, but for some reason marquee select is too sensitive, and like all the movement commands it's not working properly. I don't know if that's just my mouse or whether that's just the game. Movement indicators, the circles here, they need to be changed to the same as the targeting reticule that's added in the next patch. They need to look exactly the same. And the reason that they brought this cursor in is for Infinity Engine fields. Now, what the targeting reticule needs to look the same as that, and the cursor needs to be the same size as the movement indicator. So I think when the targeting reticules come in for when in combat, the movement indicators need to be the same, and the cursor needs to be made bigger as well. So it actually is the same size as a character circle. And I also think that the it would be nice if the gauntlet was a little bit bigger as well. What else have we got here? I've already talked about the UI sounds. Game options don't save on load. Sorry, they don't save on load or quit, or and they don't persist across areas. So here I'm going to open up the options here. So if I want to turn off combat tooltips or whatever, and I change an area, or I save the game and come back in, none of this stuff is saved. So that needs to be worked on. What else have we got? Yes, I've got the feedback sliders. Yes. Oh yeah, NPCs need a different color selection circle to characters. When I mouse over this guy, he's got a green selection circle. That's very confusing. Might be okay if you're colorblind, but if you're not colorblind, it's bloody annoying. So it was when you're walking through the town, when people are like, they have their selection circle coming up because they have some ambient text, it looks like they're a party member. So that could get really confusing, especially in like Defiance Bay or something like that. So they really need to change, when colorblind mode is turned off, they need to make it so that selection circles are blue, not green. The other thing they need to do is they have to have feedback sliders so that you can actually turn selection circles on all the time, like the Infinity Engine games. The Infinity Engine games had 2 feedback sliders. I think there was either, it wasn't in controls, it was in, I think it might have been in game or graphics options. Here they've got hide selection circles. They need to change this into 2 feedback sliders at the top so you can control the exact amount of feedback that you want. I like selection circles on all the time. I would like to be able to see them around all characters at all times, and I would like to see the selection circles, sorry, the targeting thing like that come up all the time. So they need to go back and open up ISO and Dale and have a look how the Infinity Engine games controlled the feedback of selection circles. What have I got here? Shadow maps for areas are inaccurate. What I mean by this, yes. I'll go and find a tree. Okay, so here's a shadow. Here's my character. Now you can see how my character is automatically darker. I'm not even standing in a shadow, but my character is darker. Here's one character. Oh, I'll just move them. Now you see how they're not in the shadow, but they actually have a shadow on their body. This character's not in a shadow. He doesn't have a shadow on his body.
Yes, very well.
Now I'll move the character here. There,
yes,
and there. Now you see how this character here, he has a shadow on his body. This one doesn't, this one does.
Very well.
So there's some inaccuracies with the shadow map, and I've already submitted this as a bug report, but I think it might, I don't know if it, sorry, I've been naughty. I know that shadow maps are 512 pixels by 512 pixels, but that's not the same aspect ratio as the level, and I think maybe that might be what's causing it. So that's just one thing I pointed out, because like when you stand on the edge of a shadow, your character already gets the shadow on the outside of the circle. See here, this character here has already got a shadow on him. A shadow on already. She's not even in the shadow yet.
Very well.
See?
Going.
I'm not even in the shadow. Anyway, that's just one thing. And the other thing they need to improve on is occlusion behind objects. Like if I had selection circles off, how would I know that there's a character behind the tree? I wouldn't, because I can't see her. They need to work on the occlusion from behind objects, and I did see a screenshot where they had like the character had an outline around them with their selection circle color, and you could actually sort of see their character blended through the tree. The Infinity Engine games did this really well. They need to be able to improve that. The character run animation needs to be desynchronized. Currently, character run animations, they run like a droid army. So, I don't know. See how they're all running in step? That's really annoying. What the Infinity Engine games did is they added a random 10-frame delay to when a character started a movement action. So if I did this here, some of the characters wouldn't move straight away, and they wouldn't all be synced. So that is one way they could do that. The other thing is they could have I don't know if there's an animation that controls the turn speed of the character, but they could work on the turn speed, so like that characters in different armor won't turn around as quickly or something like that. That's 2 suggestions that they could do about that. code that governs child areas is really annoying. You can't have characters inside and outside of houses. This may be by design because I think it would be possible if you could abuse combat by going through doors and whatnot. Because I know in the Infinity Engine games, in some levels, you can have people outside and like just run away from people. But I'm pretty sure like in the later games they managed to get it so that people actually follow you outside if the child area allows you to go back outside or not. Because some of them are separated by like the I think they might be counted as a separate level, whereas like in Baldur's Gate 2 and Baldur's Gate 1 and stuff, you can go inside a house and it's considered part of the main area, so you're not actually changing the area. I think how they could do that is they could load the levels at the same time, so then it wouldn't, and then take the restriction away. I don't know if that would eat up too much memory or not, I'm not sure. But anyway, I would like to be able to do that. I've already spoken about it, but I think they should have some more neutral animals in areas. Like in Baldur's Gate 1, they had like bears and stuff. In this game, they've got deers and stuff like that. But it would be nice if maybe some of the lions or like bears or wolves or whatever. Well, I suppose wolves make sense, but like just some more neutral animals, just to make the game feel like that you're not doing combat all the time. I'm not sure. Another annoying thing is that the tab function. Tab does a bunch of things. So what Tab did in Icewind Dale 1 and Baldur's Gate 1 is that when you tabbed over an element in the UI, it sped up the feedback. So here I have to wait until the tooltip comes up. When I press Tab, it brings up the thing. But in the game, it brings up all the area transitions and all of the NPCs tooltips. Like it brings up everybody, not just these. It brings all the ones up on the screen, like in the level. There's a noticeable delay when you're in a big area that brings up absolutely everything. So my frame rate like drops down when I do that. So they need to make show all tooltips a separate button from tab. They need to make it something else. Like they need to split it up so that tab or like whatever. I don't care what the key is. I just want to be able to change it back to how it was in the Infinity Engine games. Oh, there's a bug. I've got higher health than my stamina. Tab should do that. It should speed up the tooltip speed, so make tooltips come up straight away. Another key should be a key that brings up all of the tooltips and the area transition stuff, and there should be another key that highlights items on the ground. It should be 3 separate things, not all in the goddamn same key. That is really bad. And the last thing I wanted to mention is that the searching, I would like to change the way that the searching for hidden objects works. Currently it only works when you're stealthed. What I would like it to be able to do is that when your characters are standing still, you can actually find hidden caches without actually having to have scouting mode on. I think that it should only work, it should work while you're moving when you're in stealth mode, but it should work when you're in stationary normally. Because like I would expect that when you're standing like this, your characters are actually looking around and like paying attention rather than just standing there doing nothing. I don't think you should have to have scout mode on to do that. Scout mode should be related to moving. It should make you be able to move and not be detected. So I think the function should be changed. Okay, so that's all of my inventory and main HUD stuff. I'm going to go into combat. Before that I might just go and get a quick glass of water. So I'll be back in a second and then I'll continue on. So feel free to keep listening to the music. Okay, back. Now, I used to be a Call of Duty 4 shoutcaster and Call of Duty 2 shoutcaster, so I'm used to talking for long amounts of time, but I usually have water there. Oh, God, that's so much better. Okay, the next thing I wanted to talk about is combat. The first thing that I've noticed, and you'll be able to see this in the game, is that ranged weapons, two-handed ranged weapons they're in the one-handed slot on characters' backs. Can you see how the arbalist is clipping through his armor? This is what I mean. It looks silly, and the bow's the same. Like it shouldn't be that high on the back. It should be in the two-handed slot. So if I put the Morningstar on the priest back, so if I swap weapon sets over, you can see how the Morningstar is in the right spot. See that's where the bow and the arbalist should be. So I think they just considered the wrong type or something. So they should actually be in the middle of the back rather than sitting up on the shoulder. The next thing is weapon swapping needs to follow the rules of recovery time. Currently, weapon swapping is instant, but then there's like a long recovery time before you can do your next action. They need to change it so that it follows the rules of the system and doesn't break them. What it should do is that swapping weapons should not be an instant animation. It should be an action where the character pulls the weapon out, and then the recovery time for it should be the same length as the animation, just like every other bloody thing in the game. And consumables should also follow the same rule. Eating a consumable should be an action, and then the cooldown for it should be the same as the length of the animation. So that just makes it easier to understand. Character animations don't blend properly when they're going to attack someone. I've already made a video of this on the forum. Oh look, see that pathfinding? Look how terrible is that? When characters go up to attack someone, they run on the spot for about 10 to 15 frames before they actually go into their attack animation, so they really need to fix the motion of moving to attack somebody. I've already made a video showcasing how silly it looks. It'll be on the forums, and it'll probably be in one of the links to this thread that this video is in. So that's one thing they need to fix. Attacks clip through models, so if I have this Morningstar and I attack a character like this, the Morningstar will just go straight through the middle of their body. In the only other game I know of this style that it happens in is Dragon Age Origins. In Dragon Age Origins, there's like a really high amount of blood, so that actually kind of masks the fact that they don't have any collision system or that preventing weapons from going through models. In all other games, attacks go to either behind the model, in front of the model, or next to the model, so it doesn't actually look like it's going through the middle of them and clipping through them, because that just looks really amateurish and it looks really bad. They really need to work on that. Combat animations need different types of swings. Currently all weapons only have one animation. They really need at least two for all melee weapons at least. Combat feedback still needs a lot of work, and so do the animations. Now, one thing that I've been talking about is the fact that it's hard to tell whether characters are idle in combat or whether they are recovering from an action, especially if you're playing in expert mode, because you can't actually tell what's going on. Now what they need to do is they need to make a different action for recovery time and a different action for idle in combat. So what I reckon they should do is keep the current combat as idle in combat, but when they go into recovery time, the character needs to have a different stance. So you can actually tell with when all the combat HUDs are turned off what the character is actually doing, whether they're recovering or whether they are idle. They also need to make it so that like when characters are idle in they don't hold some of the weapon stances aren't quite right as well. And yeah, it just needs a bit more work. When you pause, like if I pause and I go to attack somebody, no, that's funny. What? Oh, here's another thing. You see how that icon's distorted? In the Infinity Engine games, if I want to attack someone, I can click on the weapon and I can attack them, but I can't do that. Why is it not working? I have to use this one. That's bullshit. You should be able to click on the item as well, so they need to fix that. Yeah, so like when you pause and when you see here I'm going to attack this guy, my character should change into the combat stance immediately, like what they do in the Infinity Engine games, whereas she's not doing it in this one. Heals and durations. Okay, so currently in the game, heals you heal for way too much stamina per second, and durations are way too long. So they need, because like durations make intelligence overpowered at the moment. They really need to nerf durations and nerf heals, so that will bring the game back into some balance. Currently, like the priest spells are just ridiculous, and it's like almost mandatory to have a priest in the game at the moment. They also, yes. Yeah, and yes. That, as I was saying before, like I think that's one of the reasons why they want to change intelligence, because it's just they think durations and AoE is too strong together. It's not. It's just durations are overpowered. A lot of the weapons are screwed at the moment. Poleaxes only do slashing damage when they should do slashing and crush. I know I've reported that, so that should be fixed. Two of the implement types, wands and I think rods, they only do. I think it's piercing damage. They should be best of two types. One of them should be slash pierce, and one of them should be pierce crush or something like that, or crush slash. I think they're all supposed to be different types. And great swords also need to be slash pierce as well. I think think that was all of them. I think also hatchets were bugged, but they're getting fixed, and there was another weapon that was bugged too. Reach weapons, they're fixing that as well currently because characters go right into melee range to attack them. The other thing is that the damage ranges are screwed because they balance the weapons against 0 DC. So all one-handed weapons and all one-handed fast weapons, all one-handed normal weapons apart from maces, and all bows and implements, they're all rotten, they're all terrible. Do not use them. If you want to actually do damage in combat, use the ones that actually work. And what I'm going to probably do a suggestion on this with map 516 at some point where we propose that they change the damage ranges so they're actually useful over a certain amount of DT. Because currently, even at 1 DT, everything is worse than two-handed weapons. Yeah, the music, there's like one combat track in music, one music combat track at the moment, and it starts off really well, and then it just repeats the same thing over and over again for about a minute, and I cannot take it anymore. I've been doing some serious testing in the beta, and I'm sick to death of that bloody track, so I've turned the game music off because of it. They really need to improve that track and make it so that it's not repetitive. I think they are going to be working on that, so I just wanted to point that out. Yeah, it's really frustrating. I haven't seen a single jib yet in the game. I think that's how you say it. Jib. Is that soft G? Yeah. Jibs. So I think they should make it so that jibs are easy to get, but that might be because the backup beta pack character is underpowered. And the last thing is they should rename swords to longswords. In this game, with this amount of nomenclature, like that has, you know, arbalests and poleaxes and all this sort of stuff, a sword is just called a sword. What the fuck is that? They should be called long swords or something. It doesn't matter what kind of sword it is. Give the sword a proper name, because I don't think any other game does that really, unless it's like a shitty adventure game or something like that. Now, I'm up to the last section, so I'm nearly done. Classes. Now, I just wanted to. This is just going to be a quick thing, and then I'll probably do my funny Australian commercial impersonation. First thing is that chants need to automatically play at the start of combat rather than you having to activate them. Rogues at the moment are a bit passive and boring, and I think they're being worked on. I really think rogues need to have a few more things to do in combat other than just right-clicking, or sorry, not right-clicking, that the auto-attacking. Monks feel a bit off, but I think they're being the order of their abilities are being changed around as well. And the other thing I found that at the moment it's easy for monks to function like they do because of the dogpiling strategy that the enemy AI uses. If you send your monk in first, they'll all attack the monk, which is good because the monk needs to get attacked in order to be able to spend their wound points or gain wounds and use their abilities. But if the monk's not getting targeted, they can't use any of their abilities in combat. They're essentially dead weight. So either they need to have something that makes them better when they're not getting attacked or something like that. Maybe they should be the ones that should have the fighters defender thing, because you know they're the ones that really should be drawing the aggro if you have a monk in the party. Priests need a few more damage spells. They really need a first level magic stone spell, because there's no first level damage spell. I think there's some stupid. Let's have a look. Barbs of condemn. Like, okay, yeah, fair enough. Halt. Like, who cares about that? Change Halt into Magic Stone, please, and then we'll be okay. And the other thing is they really need something like Spiritual Hammer. That would be awesome as well. The Ranger is probably my least favourite class at the moment. I really like the animal companion mechanics, but like their abilities are just shit. Like, there's just nothing to do. Like, all it is just right-click and positioning. There's no, like, they're not even really that fun. And they don't really benefit from intellect at all. Like their duration, they don't really have any duration-based or AoE-based abilities. I think later on they get like a cone where the arrows go through people or something like that. But other than that, yeah, pretty shitty. They're probably my least favourite class at the moment. But that's not conceptually. Like conceptually, it's a good idea, but just the implementation at the moment isn't that great. Do Rangers have abilities at 4th and 6th level? Because like I looked on the wiki and I can't remember I don't actually think they do, so they need to actually get an ability per level or something like that. A lot of the mechanics seem to be very similar to the Lone Druid in Dota. And the last thing I wanted to mention is that Cyphers, Druids and Enchanters are OP. So they're the three most powerful classes at the moment. So like if any backers haven't tried them out yet, give them a try. They're really fun, but they're also really overpowered, and they're probably going to be getting nerfed. Anyway, that wraps up all of my feedback that I've got for my backer beta review version 2.78. So yeah, if you liked my video, you know, throw a comment on the forums and all that kind of stuff. Please let me know if you liked the background music and whether it was at the right level or not. And I've got a bunch of other channels on my YouTube. I've got my Sensuki versus the Beatles, and all of my stuff for the beta is unlisted. So I don't know. I think if you can find like a playlist of all my stuff, you might be able to get it. Also, check out the paper we did on attributes, which should be how to fix attributes in Tools of Eternity. If it's not on the front page of the forums, just do a search for it. It's like 8,500 words, and it took me and Matt516 about 2 weeks to do. So yeah, it was a lot of work. And yeah, so I'm just going to take a glass of water, and then I'll do the impersonation of the commercial I was thinking about doing. There was a couple of people that said like me bashing the shit out of the game for an hour is really draining, so that I needed to show some more emotion or something like that, and it was just really boring to listen to. So hopefully that isn't the case. So anyway, I'm going to do an impression of a famous Australian commercial from about 15 years ago for a HBA. So I'll pause the music for you. Alright, so I'm not going to do the whole commercial, I'm just going to do the end.
Crocodile came up, pulled my guts out, tearing me apart in pieces. My leg went that way, and then my head went that way.
Be with me all my life, wherever I go.
Are you with HBA?